let's get to our next segment here as we continue our spring game coverage on Locked On Pac-12. 3 players who earned playing time based on the spring showcase and just kind of spring football writ large, since this was, probably closer to a glorified practice than an actual competitive game for the Bruins and Chip Kelly. But the first guy who Chip has talked about is Duke wide receiver transfer Jake Bobo. Now, Coach Kelly has said that he's pushing himself towards wide receiver 1, a position that is, I think, wide open, right? Chase Cota might have been a lead candidate for that had he stayed, but he decided not to. He's up in Eugene with the Ducks. Kyle Phillips is not there. Kyle Phillips was definitely wide receiver 1 a season ago. You could have made an argument that it was Greg Dulcich at the tight end position. That was certainly DTR's safety blanket, those 2 guys, but Dulcich especially. That's where he was often looking on third down, was either to number 85 or number 2. Pretty sure Dulcich was number 85. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But Jake Bobo has played 4 years of college football for a good offensive mind at Duke and David Cutcliffe. He is 6'5", and he has got a big physical frame. If you go look at him and watch some of the tape that he put on at the spring showcase, he's not afraid to hit people. I mean, he is willing to get out there and go toe-to-toe with anybody who's in front of him, and he's not afraid to block. And that's something that Chip Kelly wants, because he's going to run a lot of those outside zone schemes. So you have to have quality blocking on the perimeter if you're going to spring Zach Charbonnet and these other backs free for big-time explosive runs. That's always been a hallmark of a Chip Kelly offense, are big runs that go to the outside. That's how everything begins, with that outside zone. You have to have wide receivers to block. So I think he likes that, but he's got good hands. He's experienced. And I think there's just a giant void. There's just a giant void. I mean, if I told you, give me the top option for DTR to have thrown the ball to last season after Kyle Phillips and Greg Dulcich, if you're not factoring in the running backs, it was probably maybe Chase Cota or Kaz Allen, right? And Kazmeir Allen is there, and he's someone who's going to have to step up in a significant way. But I think that Kaz Allen is a little bit more of a slot guy. And when you say wide receiver 1, you think someone who's got a big frame like Jake Bobo, who is able to play on the outside. And if he's going to step into that role, the quicker he and DTR can build chemistry, the better it's going to be for the Bruins offense. So a lot of pass catchers have left the program. And so as a result, guys have got to step in, and Jake Bobo has definitely become a leading candidate to do that for Chip Kelly and UCLA. Another guy, well, it's 2 guys, but they're twins, so we'll just consider it the same. Gabriel and Grayson Murphy transferred to UCLA in this past offseason from North Texas, and they've showed some nice things, right? They're not tearing it up in a way that's like, oh my gosh, are these the next big stars of college football? No, but have they stood out? Have people asked about them and the coaches said good things about them? Yes. And the reason that I mention them here is they have the potential to, really fill something that's a major void. With Mitchell Agude leaving, he went down to Miami in the transfer portal this offseason. That was UCLA's best pass rusher from a season ago. And there are questions about this Bruins defense on the back end, to be sure, which I'll get to here in just a moment. But DBs can only cover for so long, right? You have to have quality pass rushers if you're going to be a good defense, or at least a competent defense. And I was talking about this yesterday with USC. I think UCLA is in a similar boat. They have offensive weapons. Yes, they lost a lot from last year, but they still have some good pieces and a great core with DTR and Zach Charbonnet back there. They're going to be able to score points. Chip Kelly, basically the entire time, aside from maybe his first year where DTR was a freshman and still learning just how to play the quarterback position at all, he has been able to score plenty of points. The issue is, like USC the last couple of seasons, they have struggled stopping people. And they hired a new defensive coordinator, which I think was a really good move. But every DC would tell you, your DBs are only as good as your defensive ends allow them to be, because it changes your mindset in how you can play receivers and how you can cover when you know confidently that you won't have to be out there matched up with a guy for 5 or 6 seconds. Like, that's just a ridiculously long time. If a quarterback, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot of time, but think about a football play. Quarterback in the shotgun, grabs the snap, drops back to pass in a 3-step drop. Think about how long 5 seconds is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you would be sitting there saying, if you're rooting for the defense, wow, no pressure. He's got all day to throw, right? Like, that's a really long time. So the DBs can be helped out if defensive ends are able to get pressure in particular. Defensive tackles are part of that as well. But Gabriel and Grayson Murphy, those are names to look out for as UCLA's attempts to improve their defense from a season ago. One guy who might help with that is Devin Kirkwood. Now, he was a 4-star recruit in the class of 2021, widely considered by recruiting agencies and places like Rivals as one of the top 20 corners in the class of 2021 in the country. He's an in-state guy from California. And the defense, if it has one big question mark, there are subsets of little groups of question marks. One of the biggest ones, or one of the biggest clusters of those little question marks, I'll stop saying that term now, is the secondary, because they struggled at times a season ago. You know, even when UCLA was getting after the passer, they just had some problems covering guys. And that was something that going into the offseason, UCLA fans knew had to be addressed. And I think Kirkwood is a guy who's kind of poised to make a second-year leap. And the reports are he's had some really nice moments in spring camp, and that he's starting to take on a little bit of a leadership role as well, which for a true sophomore, I can only imagine is really, really difficult, because you haven't played that much college football. But if you're in a group that doesn't have an undisputed leader, and they don't have, you know, sort of a hallmark guy defensively that they can lean on, and you come in with a decent amount of clout as a recruit, and I think he totally deserves that from having watched him play a little bit. That's a tough thing to be asked, but he might have to, you know, take on that sort of role. And he was asked about that recently at a UCLA, or after a practice at a media availability session, and he said that, you know, it's tough, but that he's also realizing he kind of has to lean into it. Another guy he mentioned in the secondary, a name to watch out for if you're a UCLA fan, is the Wyoming transfer Azizi Hearn. And he's talked about how much those two have been working well together, and how impressed, you know, Kirkwood has been with him. And he started his career at Arizona, then went to Wyoming. Now he's back in the Pac-12 with UCLA. So at the second level, I think those are the sorts of names to look out for, to see, are they making a big leap? Are they becoming starting caliber players in the Pac-12? Because at some point, UCLA is going to need those sorts of guys. And they're hoping their new defensive coordinator, who I'll get to in a little bit, is going to help them make strides schematically. But you have to have players make plays sometimes as well, because a defensive coordinator can call the perfect coverage, but if it's not executed well, or if guys don't know their assignments, or they don't make their play, then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And so I think Devin Kirkwood and maybe Azizi Hearn are players to look for at the second level of the Bruins defense.